Hi, thank you for attending the Northeast HamXposition 2025 class presentation titled 4Ps times 2 for training. Unique title, I know, and I think you'll see why I gave you that title. My name is Rory Griffin, W4RJG. I live in South Boston. It took me about 12 hours to get here. Yes, I know, and you're trying to figure out why did it take me 12 hours to drive just from Boston, because my South Boston is in Virginia, so that's why. Now, with that, I did not grow up in Virginia. I do not talk like a Virginian. I grew up in the New York City area, as you'll see in various parts of my presentation in the beginning. And with that, that means I can go back to my New York City dialect roots, and I can pick up my Brooklyn accent, and then that means I'll be sounding like South Boston way of talking, especially the way South Boston used to be. So if you want me to be more comfortable for you in a New England kind of a way, let me know, okay? There we go. All right, first, most importantly, thank you for attending this session. I do appreciate that, as always. I'm going to ask if you can hold your questions until the end. There's a lot to cover, and we do have a limited time. For myself, I've been licensed in 1983. I am now an extra light, which means no, I don't know Morse code. I didn't have to know it when I got my extra license, and I got involved with so many different things along the way, I just couldn't stay steady. But I never negate the importance of knowing at least 5 words a minute Morse code, because you can do anything with Morse code with any kind of a pattern sound to get communications. I have a GMRS license, and I have 2 local repeaters. I'm an EC for Halifax County, Virginia, and that's right on the border of North Carolina, just north of Raleigh, if you want to look it up. I am an assistant DEC for my district, and that district runs from the North Carolina border right up through the middle of Virginia all the way to the Maryland border. It covers a long area, and it's not always physically easily accessible, but with today's electronics, it helps. I have areas and community experience from New Jersey and New York City. I am CISA AUXCOM-T and COM-LT, which means I've taken both those courses, but they do have an extensive sign-off sheet process, and I'm in the middle of doing that. But the classes are still highly informative. I'm a shares operator, including an RMS station, not quite on the air yet. We just got one small step to do, and it'll be up and running. I have done RF support for major events, such as the New Jersey Shore fundraising event for muscular dystrophy, and it's a complete shore north to shore south, and they reverse it the next day. I only did one day on Saturday, but I did static as well as mobile operations, and you got people spread out over miles and miles. Bunch of ambulances, you hear various calls, so there is kind of a regular communication that's more of a health and welfare aspect. Support for the New York City Marathon. It didn't lead a particular milepost, but did do it for a number of years. Mile 4, so everybody's still there. They're not out of breath yet at all, and they're just pumping away. And this is all after 9/11, so it's a little bit tighter on security. Salute to Israel Parade. And one of the notoriety things about that is it is the biggest parade in New York City outside of, or rather after, the New York City St. Patrick's Day Parade, which means it's huge. Some of the cool things I did was actually help get out there and getting the groups going, because there was a breakdown in communication, because they were trying to use cell phones, which didn't really work. So I was there with my ham radio talking to the center stage podium, so they would know exactly what groups are coming out in what order, because it doesn't always happen. And even at one point got to lay down in the middle of 5th Avenue and 57th Street, 55th Street, something you normally never get to do because there was no traffic. There's a bunch of kids all standing around. So that made it unique. But learning how to deal with communication support that we weren't even supposed to do, and learn things from that. Other things I've done is in my local county. When I arrived here in 2017, there was no amateur radio activity at all. 2022, I put on a field day event for the first time around here in like 15 years. From that, where we lost 50% of our repeaters, within 2 years they were back up, and by the constant promotion that I had been doing, literally for a while, 7 nights a week with something different, that the other repeaters were put back up. We have expanded our DMR repeater capability, and we now have fusion repeaters, and the fusion repeaters are hooked up with wires X, so we're now connected with the entire northern part of North Carolina. That's where more of our life would be as far as proximity is concerned versus the major cities north of us. But have done a lot of different things in teaching, preparing, licensing classes, and such. I'm active in a number of national nets and groups promoting effective EmComm communication capabilities for, quote, the average operator, meaning it's not targeted to section managers and to district emergency coordinators and people like that from an ARRS perspective, but just for a regular kind of an operator. For WinLink Wednesday, which is a great way to keep your WinLink muscles active and to keep your software always in sync with the rest of the WinLink system. Once a week you check in. That's all you have to do. They'll let you know that you've done it, and if you're a regular participant, they actually give you a printed certificate after the first 100 messages that you have sent in, maps showing who's been where, how many times. So it's a responsible organization, if you will. And what I do is I supply part of what we do, and part of a core part of why we exist is learning and making sure you keep on knowing how to do P2P operation, which certainly has its specific usefulness. And I was the first one to get up on 40 meters, so this way people have other time slots to try and get into the system. We now have a number of other alternate NCSs as well. I am a member of the EDM Steering Committee, and I highly regard that group. I've been on the steering committee, involved with it now for about 3 years, and we focus only on when all else fails. For our recent event, Hurricane Helene, for everybody who were in non-normal hurricane events, they weren't built to withstand everything that happened, and all kinds of communication systems were just gone, literally just wiped off the map in a lot of cases. So we teach with a focus on ARRS type groups, but whoever wants to learn, it's a training organization of how to utilize various tools, when to utilize them, and strengthening them, wanting them to have their own written plans down, so they know what to do when all else fails, or another way of when it all hits the fan, and you're not thinking as clearly. Well, have everything written down. Anyway. Testing, helping people actually get their licenses initially, as well as up to and including extra licenses, and also involved with Army Mars. Very regular attendant on that, including running a local net on a regular basis. So, with that, that's my qualifications of why I'm here. 4 P's for training. So, we're going to talk about training people. And there are 2 ways to do it. But why we're doing this is volunteer organizations, because they're volunteer. In other words, people don't keep coming back like your job because you want that paycheck. You have to find ways to keep them energized and engaging the volunteers, especially if there isn't a lot of things that they can feed off of to say, yeah, that was great. Without determined effort, volunteers will lose interest. Excuse me. And what can also happen is just regular living events to distract them away from their support. Their job may send them off, or illness may take them out of line. And it doesn't just mean us older folks. Amateur radio emergency communications in any form is becoming harder to gain new members. Some people don't see the value. People have lots of other distractions in their life that keeps them occupied. So it just is a little bit harder than it used to be. There's no doubt about that. And so what I'm going to be doing with my 4 Ps, that there are 2 views behind those 4 Ps. View number 1 is the trainer level. Those who are involved in instigating and planning the training sessions. And the perspective that I'll be doing is focusing not just on the technical aspects, actually not that much at all, but also creating multiple layers for the attendees to connect with into the group. The attendee level is to help the attendee knows what they're supposed to be doing in the coming exercise. This helps with the total development as part of the organization. And there are reasons why I use the word total development. So here we go. Trainer level. You need to help the attendees want to come knowing that they will gain useful information and experiences. Doesn't mean that they get to learn more about as an amateur radio, but if they're interested in immersive communications, if it's kind of new to them, there'll be some things that they had never considered before, and to gain those experiences and that they want to do that. It is never just technical. An incident from whoever we're going to help is extremely non-technical. Our line of how we support is technical, but there has to be a match between the two. Everyone has personal viewpoints in getting involved in a volunteer organization, and they all need to coalesce. They need to learn how to mesh and live with each other and work with each other. And that including you, you're the trainer. You've got your own thoughts as just a ham radio operator looking to support the agency, the community, but also then if you have levels of responsibility, that gets involved as well. And that has to be all become part of the process. And you have to keep that in mind as the trainer. Trainer here is just anybody who's responsible for getting things accomplished within the group. Trainers include the leader who initiates an exercise for the group for any reason. Not always the same person. You can have somebody doing it, 2 or 3 different people throughout the year. But it's also for those who develop the exercise, which is not the person who initiates it, and it's for the people, and some of those who develop the exercise, they're not running it, which can also be true. So there are various views of what we would call a trainer, overseer, whatever, but they're responsible for getting it accomplished. So they have to be thinking of all the things that need to be involved with the training of an exercise or through a drill. So, first P. So allow me to tell you where I got these P's from first. There's a paper that I came across in a post-formal session with WaveTalkers. I'll mention that later on. Where the guy has, one of the leaders there has a strong academic background, and he mentioned this 4P papers for academics that he's used for his training, which has been on a number of different scenarios, not just within amateur radio. And it was written for professors, the academic world. They have a very unique little mindset, which I'm sure a lot of people around here would understand, being that you're a very well-populated academic population around here with the colleges and such, which then pervades into your careers outside of the college. Not everybody in the academic world actually knows how to think about being a teacher. And so the 4 Ps were presented to help those professors learn how to be a teacher, not just presenting their particular expertise of knowledge that they have that got them to be a professor. And that would include no matter how many stripes are on their gown for formal graduation ceremonies, whether it's they've got a bachelor's, master's, PhD, you still have to be taught, if it's not a good thing for you, knowing how to actually teach, engage those students before you. They're not just automatically going to sit there and be sponges to your information. So that's where this came from. It was come from an academic world, and the way it gets applied is, keep in mind, folks, we know that we are a bunch of technicians. That means we can be a little bit nerdy, and so in a similar fashion, we're going to be like those professors that we need to get out of just the technical world, and that's what this whole particular presentation today is about, is not just technical in helping getting things done. So with that, thank you. Usual problems to overcome, because our first P is about problems, is your problem can be, and those who have been around long enough, you'll hear it around the tables many times, dull, repetitive training and exercises. So same thing. We always know what's going to happen. What's the big deal? Now, there's a particular point that's positive about that, which I'll address much later, but it's a problem if that's all you're doing. If you just say, okay, Sam's going to be the primary NCS instead of Charlie, other than that, nothing really changed. Yeah, that gets dull and repetitive. You could be losing members. It happens. Aging out, illness out, life issues out, whatever. Problem is always part of the overall solution that has to be kept in mind. So with that, keyword solution, the solution must be adjustable with revolving members over time. for the reasons why even people leave. Not everybody's going to be available every single event all the time for the whole event. Also, technology needs for whomever you're doing this with. Remember, we are a secondary to the primary. The primary is I am supporting a critical, particular problem, need, situation. Fire, hurricane support relief, and all they need us for the secondary is provide communications. Not being part of what they're doing, but making sure that they get to communicate with everybody that they need to communicate with. So we are a solution to a problem for them, with part of their overall problem. So you want to make sure that the technology meets their needs. If they're always going to be just a local, let's say Red Cross, and whatever they need because you're in a more congested area, there's always a Red Cross station. It's always within 5-10 miles. All you're going to need is VHF, UHF. Maybe have somebody with beams at both locations to ensure communications through buildings. But other than that, you don't need any HF. Where I live, it's extremely rural. It's very, very expected that we're going to need HF communications. Not so much as a donut hole because we can't get through, but just because the various resources can be so spread out, HF is going to be absolutely required. Even if it's going to be all NVIS, but VHF, UHF just would not cut it. That's what I mean by technical needs. As well as WinLink, if you know how to put together Arden systems, if you have people in your agency that are very well knowledge on FLDigi, you go with FLDigi, not so much WinLink. That's what they know how to do, so you learn how to do FLDigi if you don't know how to do it. Now, the 4 Ps are also not a formula. It's not like we got to do this, we got to do this, got to do that. They're perspectives to keep in mind that you want to employ in your planning process. Perspective number 2 for the trainer is project. A project is a sequence of tasks with specific start, specific end, time, and event. Everything we basically deal with, other than maybe regular meetings, are projects. An incident has a beginning when it starts, and it'll have an end, hopefully not too long in the future. When you're going to do an exercise, it's a project. If you're going to be doing a drill, it's a more intense project, and it has a beginning. You start putting the project together, and you build it up to the actual execution, and then you have your official wind-down processes. And then your post-production, if you will. Too much IT talk. Your after-action reports and things like that, making sure that everything was done correctly and address it. For your projects, they don't have to be a group session like a drill or an exercise. It can be, okay, I want everybody to read through, I'm going to make this up, hadn't thought about it till just now while talking. I want you to read through our emergency operation plan, and I want you to answer the following questions. Now, it can be an open book test. You just want them to get the knowledge. You'll get the application of that knowledge at a later time, but you could just say, do this Tuesday night, I want everybody to submit it so I have it all by Wednesday. So it puts a little pressure on to make sure it gets done within a particular time frame, but it's an open book test. They can go through it as quickly as they can. Kind of like the initial ICS courses. You can read the books, while you're taking the test. You just want the knowledge inside the people's heads. You can have Zoom sessions, so much easier today, obviously. And you always, though, when you do that, make sure you have an agenda. It does not have to be a complicated agenda. It could be, okay, we're all gathered here together. It's a QA session. We will control who gets to ask the question, so it has a controlled flow, and it doesn't become, an out-of-hand time. That's an agenda. Or you could have specific things you want to cover. But have them once a quarter, let's say. If nothing else, it helps everybody remember who's who by faces. If a problem is to solve, is the focus of what you're going to be doing, you're going to lose volunteers. They are not there for the solving of a problem. They are there to be the solution. Most can't deal with it, which is nothing against them. It's why they're there to help, but not there to be the one putting things together in plans and structures and things like that. So keep in mind, you don't want, as part of the exercise, to solve a problem. Not unless it's going to be a technical one, but remember that's not the focus of these 4 Ps, such as Okay, we normally have Charlie who sets up an entire WinLink RMS portable station for everybody to use, HF and VHF and UHF. We got it all. Charlie broke his leg. He can't make it today. How do we get around that? That would be a problem to solve as the focus, but really it's their learning and then how to be a solution within their particular world. Other than that, no, you don't want to do that, because you want them to understand they are a solution themselves, and you're going to be teaching them how to operate within a solution. Your emergent leaders will arise, though, in helping to solve problems in the life of the organization. It bubbles up in various ways, formally, informally, and you always want to be able to keep on noticing your people who are emergent leaders, because you're not always going to be there, and you always want to be training leaders as often as you can as leaders, because only leaders can make leaders. You're the only ones who know how to do that. You want to present each training event as a solution and what your members can do to participate. I already mentioned that, so I won't read that again. All right, perspective number 3, peers. Normally we think of peers as it could be a bad thing, peer pressure. Well, you want to encounter that in a positive way. You want to make sure that you do things that is a team being worked together. So if you see somebody who's incorrectly nudging another team member, you want to get involved and get that to be stopped, because you want to emphasize team for everything that's being done. You also want to recognize who's the best and capable at what. Different people are better at various different things. I have some very particular skill sets that go up to a certain level. There are other people that don't know as much as I do, but they're better at some of the things that are kind of beyond my reach when needed to be done immediately. I got other people that I know that I just sit back and how did you think of that? How did you know how to do it that way? Different people have different abilities, and you always want to allow those things to glow as part of the team. Given that much happens over the radio, the interpersonal relationships can be minimal, like hardly any. We're limited to what we can say on the radio. We have our wordage, our verbiage, our protocol that limits what actually happens. You want them to know, because you're not going to be doing light time hanging out if you get involved in a serious situation. You want them to actually know each other a little more closely and definitively. You also want to make sure that the hierarchy, who is responsible for what, at what level or what position to oversee different parts of whatever it is that you're doing, it ain't based on the number of radios that an operator brings. Because just because they know all that kind of technical stuff doesn't mean they have what's called soft skills, the people skills, the organizational skills. I grew up in IT where we were promoting people as managers because they were great leaders of a particular part of writing and installing new software. Wow, they're really good. Promote them to manager, and we were learning real fast then that they also know how to manage people, regardless of whatever it is that you're doing, which created a number of problems. I had one particular person in mind. So, last perspective is passion. What has passion got to do with that push to talk button? First, you always want to tap into each one individually when you can, why they are a volunteer in your organization. They're not always altruistic. Not a bad thing, but you want to be sure why they're doing it. Some people need the attention. So you got to give them enough attention where, yeah, we're glad you're here. We're glad you showed up, but realize, give it just enough where they feel satisfied, but don't give into it. Because that creates problems, because then other people who are part of your team, who are much more altruistic, will start resenting it. Well, why do you always give Charlie all that attention? Charlie's okay. But, do you have to give into it? Oh, me? No. In team, one of the songs that never gets sung is me. For passion, you always want to remind them that it's not always exciting. For the passion for joining is all part of each training event. Now, remember I told you dull, repetitive things is pretty bad? However, they have to see that some of the things that we're going to do are dull and or repetitive, things like that, and still have the passion for doing it, because it's still providing communications for others, not the joy of actually operating the equipment. And different ways to do it. Help them see the passion in the details of the training event. If you write up a 3-page set of instructions, you want them to have the passion for wanting to know every detail in there. Now, how you do that, I ain't going to tell you. That's your soft skills, how you best can do it. I know various ways that I can get it done. It's not certainly the best way to do it, but it can get done. And there are some other people that they just don't know how to do it. If you ever, however, have a good team member that knows how to get them excited, use their soft skills. Let them get everybody excited, because that's not a strength of yours. You're still making sure, as the trainer, to make sure, the leader, to get those things done. So, other ways to have passion, play. Go have fun. Go have a prototype event. Just everybody get out there. Now, don't have to make an official POTA, just fun little contest. Who can make the most number of contacts within a band and most number of contacts on all the bands? And, just have a fun little scoring kind of a thing. And they get to take home a slice of pizza. I don't know. Whatever you think you can come up with. But go have different things for fun within the hobby, because you want to make sure the hobby still becomes fun. And by being part of this kind of an EmComm group, you're taking away from the fun of the hobby. So you want to instill some of the fun back in. That puts some of the passion back in. And plan for the weather that comes your way. Make it a fun in the wintertime, which you guys certainly get up there in and around New England. Doesn't matter anywhere in New England. You guys get definitive winter weather. Nastier, whiter, taller white, but you always get it. So keep that in mind in different ways to make it a game. Scenarios. You want to make sure that they have passion for the scenarios, that whoever you're serving, official capacities or unofficial capacities, that's what this is all about, and the various scenarios, and get them to be excited, wanting to be part of things like that. And then bottom line, in a way most important, passion for each other. You want them to get instilled with a passion for each of the other team members. And sometimes just do something to focus on team relationships. Play would be one of them. You come up with your own ideas, because some will bubble up just out of your own team members of different things they think would be fun to do. Now, extra credit. That was not part of the original academic 4 Ps, but I think is worthwhile putting out there for you. I'm going to say should, and with a very strong capital letter, underline, bold, blinking, italic, should have at least one member in the group with ICS and 300 and 400 certification. For those of you who've had it, and I know a number of you have, and for those of you who don't, you will understand once you get the certification, you want at least one person so you know how to fit into any incident command structure and how it's all working, where you fit into it, and why you're way off to the side in so many ways, even though, because of what you do, you may get involved with a number of the other parts of the whole incident command structure to be their communications vehicle for them. You're not involved with what they're doing, you're just making sure their information flow through an RF mode occurs smoothly and correctly. Tabletop exercises. Sit around, make believe that actually write an exercise, and then, as a leader, say, okay, Joe, your supervisor for your area just came over and gave you an email, to get out. How would you do that if he already has the email on his computer? And then he gets to see how much Charlie knows, and everybody gets to learn how to do it, and hopefully most of them already do, but it needs to go out through RF. How does that get accomplished? It's actually a few different ways, depending upon your agency, what members you got, and who can do what. And you do it in tabletop so it can be discussed while it's happening, or after Charlie says, okay, this is the way I did it, then you can have kind of a little mini open discussion. Any other ways that anybody else could think of they were doing it? Or who hasn't a clue, and this is all brand new to them, because they only know how to do it exactly how they've been told how to do it before. And that request was not a way that they've ever been told before. So tabletop is another way to get those kind of things accomplished, building up your teamwork, but you're directing it, which is a part of this 4 Ps, you as a leader, trainer, etc. You want to give a light view of the ICS 300-400 for those of you who know what it is, just so you have an understanding how they fit into that entire structure, the whole initiation, who's the initiation, who's the most responsible people, and how all that paperwork all gets done before you get done at stage 5 of the planning P, before the communication team gets to see it. How come it took all that time for us to see what they say is critical for us to know? Because there are other things that have to be done first. Another thing is to make sure that they know what to do for deployment. 1-day deployment, kind of easy for your 1-day go bag. But a 3-day go bag starts getting different because now you get food, toiletries to keep in mind, change of clothes, and something that one guy in WaveTalkers made sure, because he learned the hard way, is bring cash and bring small bills. A bunch of small bills. Just keep them in there. Money stays the same. May not be worth as much as it used to, but it's still $1 is $1. And bring a bunch of small bills, because when you go into a bad situation, vending machines may run out, being able to give change to bigger bills. Local stores can be running out of change. So you make sure that it's something you can buy, because you have denominations that are the closest to what you're actually going to be paying for, and get the food, toiletries, whatever it is that you need. Continue on with extra credit. Go to a park once a year for a deployment scenario. Setting up every possible station. Get everybody to come. Everybody. And then if your group is big enough, set up 2 locations in the park where you can't see each other. That's more like a real live large-scale incident, and they must work across the airwaves. Or, if you don't have a big enough group but you like the idea, go ask somebody who's your next door neighbor. And go to some place that's in between both. Get both groups to bring as many people as they can in, hopefully 100% on both sides, and do the same thing. It's got to be a little more planned when you get to that kind of a level, but just have, okay, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, and everybody has to set up as a full emergency in the middle of nowhere operation. And it's fun because it's a picnic, and of course then bring picnic stuff for afterwards, and barbecues and food and things like that. And then maybe even the wives and the kids come down later when the equipment's safely put away, and just make it a big fun event. Sync. Alright. So, for the attendees, there are 4 Ps. And the way I came across these 4 Ps is I was thinking we need both a trainer and an attendee level. I happened to see a drum and bugle corps training session with about 200 kids out there in the field. And they presented 4 things that these kids need to be doing when they come to these training sessions. And they're learning how to all work with each other. The drums have had their separate times. The various scales, horned instruments have their times. The flag people, rifle people, color guard units, and now it's more drama, presentation squads. Everybody's kind of learning differently, but you all have to learn how to do it all at the same time on one field. And so all 200 of these kids are out there, and this guy says, these are the things you must be doing. And none of it has to do with what they're actually going to be doing. So it wasn't hard for me to make an adjustment. And if you don't know about drum and bugle corps, it's not a foreign thing up here. And you've got a well-known drum and bugle corps called the Boston Crusaders, who are good. I was in a drum and bugle corps when I was just a little bit younger than I am now. There is called Junior, which is 21 and younger, which means mostly older high school, younger college, and then you have adult, and it depends upon a person's availability to participate. And I've been to some really awesome shows, participated in some and such. So look them up, Boston Crusaders. So, with those 4 Ps that we would want our attendees to keep in mind is 1, practice, presence, perspective, and patience. So here we go. Perspective number 1, practice. When you're going to be going through, I'm going to be speaking as if I'm talking to the attendees. If you go through a time going through various administrative or technical routines, give it your all. Real deployment is active. You must have as much muscle memory as possible, because it's not going to go as quietly as when you're going through a training development time. And just to highlight administrative in one particular way, and this was stressed very, very strongly in the CISER AUXCOM community, and for those of you who have been involved in serious incidents, is the ICS 213. You see cops, they've always got their book, they're always writing notes, because when you get called into court, and believe it or not, all you do is help operate a radio. You can be called into court, and they're going to want to know what you did and when. And they want to see, did you keep proper record keeping? It has nothing to do with you. You're guilty of nothing. They just want to try and prove the, let's say the ones who are suing the agency, government or private, that they really didn't do things properly. But if you show that you have been properly trained to write your ICS 213, when you left home, how many miles, where'd you go, how much gas did you get before you got there to make sure that you're going to be getting home safely, and what equipment did you bring, what time did you arrive, who did you check in with, when you went to lunch, where did you go for lunch, what time did you get back from lunch, major incidents that you've done along the way while you were doing your work that got you occupied or distracted you from doing your job and then was able to get back on. As much logging as you can on ICS 213. So in 3 years from now, when you get hauled before a court because you were a witness to the total event, as minimal as it was, that you can prove that you did everything that you were supposed to, including the administrative work, the ICS 213. Even if you just do it initially, keeping notes external, and then you just write it all up before you leave, before you submit it. Take a picture of it before you hand in your primary copy, so this way you have your copy. Don't expect them to keep your primary copy if that's what they want you to do. That's all part of the muscle memory, and you have to keep in mind that 213, so you want that as part of your routines when you're doing drills and exercises. Excuse me. So now, again, back to dull repetitive training and exercises will happen, it's supposed to happen, because much of the groups that we are helping are first responders or direct first responder supporters, Red Cross, Salvation Army, and you're helping groups like that, or some other major support agency like them, and so they have dull repetitive exercises because they're going to do the same thing. They want to make sure that, let's say, Red Cross knows how to quickly get blankets and cots into the trailer, and that's stored in a trailer. They do that repetitively, let's say. We already know cops and firemen do regular drills because they're supposed to, and it doesn't matter how many years you've been on the job, just always do it, partially so that the newer ones can see how the experienced ones actually do it when it occurs. Excuse me, I need a drink. So dull repetitive exercises will be at times very much part of what we do because of who we are serving. That's why you want to do all those other things, trainers, to negate the dullness in their mindset. Now, when possible, to you attendees, read up on what is expected beforehand. Don't wait to be told and say, oh, I know how to respond. No, be proactive in the learning as you're going along. That's part of your practice. And if you're bringing pop-up stations, know how to pop up at home before you actually go anyplace else. In other words, whatever you can do at home as part of your practice when you want to do it, not just because your organization has asked you to do it, to play with your equipment at home. Perspective number 2, presence. Be there, not just in body, but also in mind. Emotions. You want to be fully focused there while you're training, drill, exercise. When you're with the group, you want to stay focused as to what's happening. For the fellowship and camaraderie, as I write here, that can happen afterwards. But if you're there for a called event, that's not the time to be fellowshipping and camaraderie. Now, hey Joe, how you doing? How things going? Yeah, I know. What did you think about that? No, it's not for now. Because you're not there in body and in mind and emotions to what is going on right in front of you. You want to focus on the directions given, because you don't know enough, but you want to know everything that they want you to know. Primary responsibility. Be present in training so you learn how to follow directions, focus on directions when there's an actual real event. You want to focus after you get those directions and understanding them, then follow those directions, which means you have to know the directions first so you can properly follow the directions. So there's step one and then there's step two. Don't try and do step two and be doing step one at the same time. Problems can easily ensue. And then you want to focus when deemed by you to be needed and to help others not quite up to par at that time. What the heck does that mean? Make sure you're staying in focus so when you need to be doing something, if you're told to sit in front of a radio station and transmit every message that they give to you through WinLink to whatever other station that they tell you to, that'll be fine. And tactical call signs, let's say in WinLink or something like that. But if there's nothing going on, but you see a team member who's close by you and they seem to be maybe a little struggle, they're not up to par for what's happening, you can go over and lend a hand. That's fine. You're keeping a focus of situational awareness of what's around you as well. Perspective number 3. Perspective is the word. The time for exercise and drills is not about you. It is about the leadership and the team they are building, and you are part of the team. Notice how it went. It's the leadership. They're the ones responsible for making it happen. The team, which is everybody who's there for what is going to be happening, and you're part of the team. The leaders can have a subset of what to do for expected needs of the agencies you serve. As you, as an attendee, a participant, you need to keep in mind what they're trying to do, not what you want to do, because you don't know everything they've got going on inside of their head. And no one expects you to. You're not even supposed to. Keep in mind just what they are trying to do. You want to work as a team. It's not you and the team. It's not you with the team. That sounds even better. No, it's the team. Therefore, what are you doing as part of the team? Written here, it's an old adage. There's no I in team. If you're part of a team, it's not you as an individual. Now, yes, there is. But that's not confusing. Each of you are valuable members. You're all valuable members as part of the team. However, you must learn to be part of that team, not an individual with the team. You still need to have that unified thought process going forward. Now, there are different skills, different amount of money people have to spend on radios and such. So somebody can be very skilled, they just don't have the money to showcase those skills with equipment because they can't afford the equipment. Where I was at 5 years ago was super minimal. Today, I've got 14 operating radios. They all are going here at home, and I can take 8 of them with me if needed. Take a little time to break them down, but if needed, I can bring 8 radios. I couldn't do that 5 years ago. I could bring 2. And I really didn't know what the heck I was doing with one of them, with all of its capabilities. So keep in mind, not everybody's at the same level, and no matter how they talk, it's not because they really can't do that technical thing. They just have their own personal limitations. No judging. Your perspective is what you use, what you can, and let them be them, because the bosses are the ones who are responsible for all that stuff anyway. And the last perspective is patience. Now, those who are in charge in anything, especially volunteer organizations, usually have a lot more going on in their head than what you see. Well, actually, yes, even in non-volunteer paid positions, probably even more, because they got a lot more accountability. But those in charge have a lot more going on. And your leaders get paid the big bucks. Now, we know in amateur radio, there is pecuniary interest not allowed. So it's really not a lot of pay. And that's all part of the passion, the altruistic reasons of why we do things. But understand, if they're putting in all that time, which is always more than what you think, besides what you actually do with them in various ways, there's always more. Always. Keep that patience, that they're going at the best pace that they can with all going on within their world about the emergency communication support being provided. Learn to observe, to be ready for a change. Don't just sit there and just ready for somebody to go, "Hey, John!" And you as John say, "Okay, what do you want?" No? Be proactive in listening, that perspective part. And be ready for a change when they're pondering, but don't make the change until they tell you to do it. Even if you know it's going to get asked, don't do it till they ask you to. If you see that a request does not seem right, and sometimes it actually happens that they didn't come up with the best idea. Trainers are good, but they ain't perfect. And you can go ahead and ask, if it's the right timing and such, but do it always with respect. If your idea might be a better idea. Don't push it, try to rush it. Just present it, and see what happens. Again, they got other things on in their head. And they may not even be able to tell you why your idea can't be done, because it exposes other information that's not valuable for the team to know. Just trust them and have that patience. If things are not right, please trust me. Bad people in bad positions do not last if they're not doing an effective enough job. You have to trust them. Unless you want to be in their shoes and want to sit down in their chair, just trust others to make sure that things get done right, because you don't want to be there. And patience ends up with, unless it's a full-on drill, like a real-life scenario, making sure that like it's really happening. As an example, let's say, we did a drill out in the middle of Newark Airport, which is a third busiest airport, I think, in the United States now. Not in air traffic, because half the air traffic is UPS and FedEx. But from a flight perspective, it's the third busiest. Lots of stuff going on. Simulated a plane crash. Lots of kids, they're out there making believe they're hurt in all different ways. Red Cross is there, Salvation Army is there, first responder community is there that's local for the airport, and then they had to bring in the local city stuff, so they all know how to do all that stuff. Lots of activity going on. That's a drill, and that's when things need to be, quote, rushed. You have to learn how to, for a timely purpose, is to get things done because you've got all those hurt people out there. And for us, the part of what my responsibility was to make sure various types of support, not just communications, was there for the first responders as they needed. So it had a flexing part to it. So that's when things need to be, quote, rushed, because for the real world scenario. Other than that, don't try and rush things. Don't worry about when you're going to get fed, when you can go for food, or whatever other things. Just go with the pace that's given, but don't try and make it happen. And if you have any thought of trying to rush to prove anything, that's one of the worst times to try and prove something, because now you're proving you're not listening and aware of everything that's going on and meeting the needs equivalent to the situation. So, overview for all you attendees, you're not going to get a thank you. Hopefully for your supervisors, but for those that you're serving, just give yourself a thank you for you using your time with your unique qualifications. Remember, we do have unique capabilities that most people aren't even aware of, let alone know how to do. You're making yourself valuable to others who will never really know. Most of the people that you're helping don't really know they're there. They know you're there, but okay, you're doing that function. It has no direct effect on me. I don't need to communicate with you. Kind of a pun on words, given that all we do is communicate officially for our job function. But they're not going to generally walk over and say, hey, great, thanks. Thanks for passing along those messages. Because their perspective of what needed to get done is entirely different, which is sometimes life-saving or life-protecting, rescuing, things like that. Keep in mind you're not there to get thank yous. It sounds harsh, but you're not always going to get it. Now, you'll also have other people who will make sure that they give us a bad name. And here's one story why you always want to do the right thing to make sure we, as EmComm operators from the amateur radio community, do not give anybody else a bad reputation about us. Ground Zero, very close after 9/11, because when I tell you communications was eradicated on every single level down there. I mean every level. Amateur radio was called in. They already had working relationships with the various agencies, private, government agencies. So they had gotten themselves in place and they were able to be within a secure area for direct capabilities working with all those agencies. And after a few days, a bunch of operators came in, 4 of them. How they got in there, they probably bludgeoned themselves in there. Oh no, we're experienced and we know what we're doing, blah, blah, blah. And the police didn't know. So they came in and they started telling these very well experienced people, one of whom I know personally, of what they were supposed to be doing because what they were doing was incorrect. Without any assessment or looking into what's going on, what's the situation, no situational awareness was accomplished. They just came in and they were just going to do anything to prove they're better. Well, the amateur radio operators on site went to the police and said, get them out of here, and if they resist you or if they try and get in again, arrest them. You're interfering. And by this time, it was a national event. So they were escorted off. Never saw them again. I remember that, so when I did a presentation, and this is a story for you to consider as an attendee of why you want to do things correct around the other people. When I did a presentation to my county, we're rural, so we have the county sheriff, we have the county dispatcher, and then some local fire department, police department chiefs. So there are about 10 of them there. So when I did my presentation, introducing them to ARRIs, what we can do for them, I ended it up with saying that I already know that there's no way that anybody will be deployed to support you unless you ask us to be there, and you will only do it through me or maybe an assistant, if I grow, have that need. But it's only because, through a proper communication channel to say, hey, I'm going to need and know what your requirements are. I said, so if anybody shows up without you making a request, you have every right to just throw them out of the scenario. And if they resist, go ahead and arrest them, please. When I said you can go ahead and arrest them, and I would be happy with that, the smiles from all around the table because of all the other stories that they've heard from anybody, whether they're a ham radio operator or CB, React, but I know what I'm doing. People who are citizens who are not asked to come in and don't present themselves as a potential resource and submitting it, but with a higher level of arrogance, if you will. There are too many stories that have occurred over the years. So I wanted to negate that, and the smiles said they understood, and their appreciation for me saying, I support you guys, period. It's your world, it's not mine. So keep that in mind why we want certain things done a certain way. So I've got another slide here, and I can't seem to make it go forward. Give me a second, please. There we go. I went too far. So we've come to the end. This is a summary of all HPs. My hope is that this helps fit into your incident command strategy, especially as it's defined by your emergency EOPs and MOUs, however they are settled. For both the trainers and the attendees, there is a balance to meet the mission and adjustments within the mission. There's always competing interests within your group. for whatever is going on. And then, of course, once you start working with whomever you're serving, they have more competing interests. So there's balances that are always in play. Again, that goes back to the very first thing I said. These aren't rules. These are things to consider. Regular training always helps everyone deal with the adjustments from the top, because there are changes at the top, who's in charge of what, and also recognize the needed ones from the bottom, because they're usually more hidden, purposely, by design, and sometimes not. The person didn't know they needed to bring forth a change that the team members and your leadership should know about. There are ideas to consider, some more strongly than others, without a doubt. There is a ranking of priority, if you will, on a lot of this stuff. And as a leader, you need to be innovative. Think of different ways to do different things. It's not just always the same way all the time. So keep that in mind. For the trainees, don't be innovative at an event unless it's critical for the event. Other than that, no, just follow the directions. Leave the innovation to the leaders. Talk to them about innovative things offline. Now, I'm going to give a bunch of stuff, and I'll explain why I'm doing this in a second. All this is derived from what I presented from formal education and personal experiences. That's one of the reasons why it's coming from a very non-amateur radio perspective, because these are generic practices and principles for organizational practices and operation, regardless of what they are, and then hone them down to specifically for us. But there are lots of various ways to think about the same thing, like what I've shown you, hopefully. Some is from my corporate life as a primary disaster recovery for my departments, and some targeted software that I was uniquely qualified for that got utilized throughout the company. And this has been the case since 1974. Some is from formal and field experience in process and project management using various tools and disciplines. Process management is a way just to make sure all the administrative stuff that are done within projects meets organizational goals and requirements. But it takes a bit to make sure it's done properly. Again, it's practices and principles. Some of the other things in my background would be things I learned from infrastructure in the various classes I've taken. Haven't listed all of them. CISA Shares program, being involved with that on 2 levels. Within AUXCOM, now as an AUXCOM trained operator and a COML trained person, and as a Mars operator and involved in helping that work on a regular day-to-day basis. As a steering committee member on EDM, and I've mentioned it, anybody who would like to learn more about when you're in the, if you look at the PACE mode, you got primary, auxiliary, contingency, emergency. I did that in the other class. That EDM world lives in emergency. All else fails, nothing's there. Think Helene in the mountains where they just lost everything. And not just saying, gee, they lost their radio communications, they lost the tower. It just got washed away. And on that tower was police, fire, cell phone, all there. It's all they ever needed, and it gone. So square miles now had no wireless communication at all, unless it was super local on an RF basis. So that would be total disaster. We teach how to be prepared for such events, and depending upon your square miles that you want to deal with, how big that region mindset is that you would want. We teach how to do things like that. So being part of that now for 3 years straight, learned certain things out of that as well. And there'll be a link for our group in the links that I'll provide, again, as I said, when I post this video. Being in auxiliary, assistant DEC, and it's mostly functioning DEC because the DEC is not able to be involved in day-to-day operations. So I'm actually more than just an ADEC, secondary and pretty much primary. So learn some things, more importantly, therefore dealing directly more with the SEC and the section manager. And we're a large state, 164 counties, I think, plus cities that have their own ECs because of the way the state views them. Involvement with New York City and New Jersey major events. Some smaller ones, of course, they're fun, but some major events, so the scaling up requires different things to learn. I started a statewide VHF, UHF Salvation Army net that covered literally the entire state, which meant it reached over into New York City and reached up into New York State and reached over into Pennsylvania. So it turned out to be a very large net very quickly, and it's one that I ran for about 2 years, with support from a senior member within the TSA community, but it was my initiation. I've learned much information from the WaveTalkers group, and the link will be there. They have lots of fabulous learning videos, a very mature way of presenting their information. It's all available on YouTube, and it's also where I've gotten support and the confidence to be able to come to a place like this. This is not bragging. It may sound like it because it was all about me, 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 look what I did, look what I did. But I'm pointing to what I've done as an encouragement for you to learn from others with all of their experiences. It expands of all of your capabilities then by learning how others have done some things. Now it could be just affirming, what you do is really like spot on and you got that affirmation, but it helps you not to be so stagnant by having some other ways of viewing stuff. And with the WaveTalkers group is I've been learning from people from all over the country with the things that they have to deal with, not just the rural, suburban, urban differences, but others as well. Your environment changes, your leadership changes. Your environment could be any number of factors. The weather, no, the weather's not changing. You guys get a lot of snow, you get hurricanes, and you have nice summers. That's not going to change. Your leadership changes, their leader, people that you're helping out, their leadership changes. Salvation Army, we had a great relationship. We got a nice HF station up and running. Everything's going good for 2 years. And the next major leader that came in said, nah, we don't need this, and got rid of it all. Just gone. Because he was the new leader. There's much of what we do that is not about our hobby directly. Keep that in mind. The hobby is almost secondary in a lot of ways. The hobby is what gives us the credentials to do what we do, but it's not necessarily the main thing of what we're doing. So that's it. I again, thank you so much for coming. It's always a thrill to be able to come up here and to do this in front of you guys. You have a very strong group up here, a very active group up here, and you have strong needs up here as well, which kind of helps your whole EmComm scenario to be working well. I hope to see your possibilities for your growth go forward with some strengthening with what you're already doing as well, and be more comfortable and confident in what's been accomplished and what's going to be accomplished. And then any integration for you and your Aries group and anything else that hopefully that what you've seen is it's not just about your group as you have defined it and that's it, but part of thinking outside of the box is integration overall in various ways, because that's coming down the line, the way things are changing with official first responder groups. So that's it. Thank you very much. You can, of course, contact me with me. I love doing this kind of stuff, so if you want any kind of a follow-up, just individually, at a corporate level, get on with a Zoom session for your group and present some or part of all of this. That'll be great. Just your leadership team. I can focus on talking just at that level, whatever it happens to be. You can WinLink me a message at W4RJG. That should be no surprise for those of you who remember me from last year, since I did 4 WinLink classes. You can email me at w4rjg@arrl.net, and that will include the official part of this class. And if we have any questions, this would be a great time. Thank you.